introduction for what I'm about to say.
You take your mask off.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Okay. Greetings and shalom to everyone. Having grown up in Baltimore, I recall looking up at the night and seeing a reddish cast from the city lights, reflecting in the haze. I could sometimes see enough stars to make out constellations like the Big Dipper in the summer and Orion's Belt in the winter. But one year I went to a summer camp in the Rocky Mountains. I especially recall one night in particular when it was so chilly I had to get up in the middle of the night and chop more wood to keep the fire going in our little stove. When I grabbed the axe and stepped outside, I happened to look up and suddenly was stopped dead in my tracks. There in the sky were more stars than I had ever seen in my life at one time. The sky was so full of stars, there seemed to be more white space than the black space in between them. Then what seemed like only a change in perspective allowed me to see something I had never seen before. Thanks to an astronomy course I took in college, I recognized the densest band of stars across the sky was the Milky Way. We all know that. But rather than just, seeing it as a kind of like a dome-shaped covering, I suddenly saw our place in it. Like, I learned that we're about 3/4 of the way out from the center of this, like, frisbee disc-like galaxy. And suddenly I saw the enormity of it. Like, those pictures they used to have in the mall, the magic eye. And if you look at them long enough or just in the right way, suddenly you'll see some three-dimensional image, right? So like that, it just kind of all of a sudden happened. So I found myself standing in awe, as though I were standing before an indescribable, well, that's what it is, it's indescribable. So, as I recall the experience now, I regret that the memory has faded over time. And once again, the sky looks two-dimensional, and the earth we walk on seems flat, and the sun seems to come up way over there, and seems to go down over there. And it kind of seems like the universe kind of revolves around us, yet I suspect I'm not alone in these feelings. We know something else is going on. We've all seen the images from the James Webb Space Telescope, but as amazing as they are, it's impossible to comprehend their scale and magnitude. So we go about our business and do what needs to be done, becoming almost oblivious to the miracles that surround us. Instead, we get caught up in an increasingly competitive society which mainly focuses on the satisfactions of our bodily needs and with the ultimate goal being comfort, security, and the ever-elusive goal of happiness. Yet after a while, even those who succeed in this pursuit somehow find themselves wondering, is this all there is? So as the level of discontent and alienation in our society increases, and COVID only exacerbated that, so does the level of confusion people have about spirituality. You all know that ultra-Orthodox and other fundamentalist groups are flourishing today at an unprecedented rate because they do a better job of selling their promises than we do. But boy, you have a sacred community here, so I don't know if it's a marketing issue, but anyway, that's for another conversation. I cannot help but think that the solution to many of the problems we're facing today lies in a means by which we can reclaim a sense of awe and wonder in our lives, by whatever means that might be. Imagine for a moment what it would be like to wake up in the morning like the psalmist who wrote, Ma gadlu ma'asecha ya. Oh, how awesome are your deeds. Yah, God, how awesome is your creation. And it's possible that you already wake up like that, that you are in touch with that. But even if you're not quite there all the way, just to think about the expanding ripples, the ripple effect that has on the people in your life and further out into the community and out into the world. Okay, so soon we'll have to get back to our busy lives, but today is a special day. It's the day that you are observing these days of awe. And so it's appropriate that we dwell in that space of awe. And who expressed it better than E.E. Cummings? He said, I thank you, God, for most this amazing day, for the leaping, greenly spirits of trees, and the blue true dream of sky, for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I who have died am alive again today. Now the ears, and then he concludes by saying, now the ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes are opened. Yet there is this wondrous side of awe, but there's also the fearsome side of it as well. I have a friend who's enduring excruciating chronic pain. That's about as real as it gets. I'm a hospice chaplain. One of the families I'm dealing with, the survivor of her mother just died. But just 9 months before, her husband, who had been dealing with chronic pain, decided to end his life by stepping in front of a freight train. The pain and suffering that is very real for many people is as real as it gets. The suffering of those dying in Ukraine, the suffering of those whose reproductive rights have been stripped away from them, leaving them no good options. The suffering of those who lost everything in Hurricane Ian and other more frequently occurring disasters due to climate change. There's a lot that we can do, but that's for another conversation. After many years of aspiring to this kind of awareness, I found that I shared this same yearning with mystics and practitioners of the Kabbalah. And I found that many of them describe this pursuit as nothing less than the essential meaning, the essence of the Torah, and propose that it underlies all of the mitzvot, all the commandments. And this Torah portion that is read by many Jews on Yom Kippur, which we'll read on Wednesday morning, is from the book of Deuteronomy and begins Atem Nitzavim Hayom. That's the name of the Torah portion. And we read some excerpts from that. And it's Moses, his last speech to the people, and it's particularly eloquent. And he says, you stand here this day before the Lord thy God. And he goes on to say that it's all of you, from the chieftains of your tribes and the elders, all the way down to the wood choppers and the water carriers. Everyone. And not only you who are here today, but all of you who are hearing these words into the future. And what does he say to all of them? He says, Ki ha-mitzvah hazot, for this mitzvah which I command you this day. And he's talking about all the mitzvot and how important it is that they keep them. But he says, Ki ha-mitzvah hazot, Mitzvah is a singular. So why does he say, what is this mitzvah that he's talking about? It's this experience, is this depth, this awe, this openness, this willingness to stand in the shoes of someone else, to see from another perspective, to transcend our own selves, our own pain. And he says, this mitzvah, he says, Lo nifleit hi mimcha. It is not too difficult. Velo rechoka mimcha, and it's not far away. It's not in the heavens that I would need to look up at the stars in order to experience God's magnitude. And it's not across the sea that one would have to travel to India or anywhere else to find it. This mitzvah, he says, is not in any of these places we might be inclined to look. On the contrary, it's so close one could miss finding it altogether. The Torah is suggesting nothing less than a radical change in perspective, in orientation. And suddenly what we thought was real and important turns out to be trivial. And what eludes our senses turns out to be more real than anything we ever knew. He says, Bificha uvilvadecha. It's in your mouth and in your heart. And in your mouth, meaning that it refers to the oral tradition. We know what's written, all the commandments that are written, but there is an oral tradition that was passed on through the sages, that was eventually written down in the Talmud, but it also continued through the Kabbalah, which means the received tradition. We have to be open to receive it. That's what it means. And, a lot of the images we get from religion are about this God that's in heaven and this myth of verticality, that we're down here and God is up there. But the Kabbalah also suggests other images, metaphors that suggest internality, that suggest, I love the metaphor of concentric circles, that matter and the self is in the center, but that everything else expands out from the emotions, the intellect, the spirit, and it's in the spirit where we all connect. And so I'm going to bring it home to you now. What the rabbis and mystics tell us, I have discovered from my own experience, not only as a woodchopper standing before God under the stars, but as someone who has spent many years exploring various mystical traditions as well as my own. The sense of awe and wonder can transform our lives, and it's possible for each and every one of us. In fact, it's the most important of all the commandments. So I'm not advocating what some claim might be mysticism for the masses or an escape from the world. I'm only suggesting that we explore and embrace the practices and metaphors that lead us to an ever-deepening awareness of a divine presence. Whether the traditional metaphors of our God, our Father, our King, that we'll sing in just a moment, Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, and that sense of awe that was intended to elicit and evoke from us. Just imagine the majesty of that. And here is my most radical statement of all. That we, each of us, every one of us, can fulfill this most important mitzvah, this most important commandment. And in doing so, not escape, but transform the world.